بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I just wanted to record a short video, a video answer to a question that is often asked, a question which students of the Arabic language and those who want to become students of the Arabic language, they want to start learning Arabic. This is a question that they often wonder about, and it's one of the most commonly asked questions. And that is, how do we become good independent readers? How do we become good independent readers of the Arabic language? How do we get to a stage that we can pick up practically any work written in the Arabic language, whether it's a Shari'i text or a non-Shari'i text, maybe a work on history, politics in Arabic, maybe current affairs. Some might even be interested in fiction, Arabic fiction, novels, and the like, um, or even classical works of literature like Kalila wa Dimna and uh, maybe the works of Jahil, the compendiums of Adab, and so on and so forth. So, how do we get to a stage that we're able to truly benefit from these texts and we're able to read them on our own? Uh, without the assistance of a teacher to understand what is being said. Um, so, the simple answer to that is by reading, right? And I know that sounds obvious, but what one really needs to understand is that reading is a skill. And like any other skill, it needs to be honed, right? Like any other skill, to achieve any other skill, you would need to practice doing that thing again and again and again till you get good at it, right? Our problem is that we try to approach reading the same way we approach conceptual and theoretical subjects, right? Yes, the subject that you might be reading in Arabic it could be theoretical in nature, right? Or abstract, and so on and so forth. But reading itself as an activity, it's a skill, right? You can't become a good reader by taking just a course on reading in which there's a few lectures and you hear an instructor give you some tips and that's it. Nor will you become a great reader just by reading a book, for example, right? That doesn't mean that such courses or books are not beneficial. They are. They'll give you tips on how to, what certain habits that you can build, certain techniques that you can use, and that's all fine. But to actually become a good independent reader of the Arabic language, you need to read, right? And this is something that students never start really doing. Many students, I'm not saying all, of course, many students do. And there are many that just don't start doing it. They continue to study grammar book after grammar book, one book after the other. Um, and they never get to a point where they're actually reading works. There's this gap that exists between them and the actual content of the language, the actual words of the language. And that's why they continue to struggle. They continue to struggle with reading. So now that we've understood that reading is a skill, like any other skill, right? Uh, you know, Kicking a ball into a goal is a skill, right? Hitting a ball with a bat so that it goes to a certain distance, that's a skill. You need to practice doing that again and again and again to get that perfect, right? As the practice makes the man perfect, as the famous adage goes. Similarly, you read and read and read, and with trial and error, there are some things you'll understand, some things you won't. Initially, you'll have to stop a lot, look for words in dictionaries maybe again and again and again. And as you continue to do that, the amount that the times that you have to use the dictionary will actually decrease, and you'll be able to read many things uh, uh, for the most part without the assistance of a dictionary. Requiring a dictionary once in a while is not a big deal at all. Even those who know Arabic really well require that at many points. So that's not a big deal. The phase which you want to go beyond is the phase where you have to stop at almost every other word to look for it. But once you're beyond that stage, you're good to continue, alhamdulillah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this whole thing down into practical steps which a student can follow in order to become a good reader, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, now I believe that if you are starting off, you have studied the Medina books, which should have given you some good practice with reading. Uh, Maybe you have studied some grammar works independently. Independently meaning just grammar works and no other content in Arabic. Maybe Ajurumiyya, maybe Nahumir, maybe As-Samadiyya, maybe Hidayatul Nahw, Qatr al-Nada, etc. Um, but you haven't really interacted with the actual mufradat, the actual words of the language yet, right? So in that case, I recommend starting reading with a teacher, right? At the very initial stage. And a good teacher will not just go through passages with you in class. They will also give you passages to read on your own to figure them out, right? That's what a good teacher will do and should do, right? At the start, you need some assistance, right? And having a teacher can help you observe him in how he goes through a text, and it can give you a model on how to go through a text. Number one. Number two, it's going to be less hectic than going through a book on your own when you've not read anything in Arabic at all, right? Because if you just do it on your own, you're going to have to stop at every single word. With a teacher, it's not going to be like that, right? The teacher will explain the words and the lines to you, and teach you how to make sense of the sentences that are there, and so on and so forth. So I recommend starting with a teacher, right? And as far as which books are concerned, the books themselves are not as important, but what's more important is the methodology that the teacher uses. And it's essential that they give you activities to do on your own, like reading activities to do on your own, so that you're able to, after those classes with the teacher, you're able to start figuring out how to do it yourself, because you want to get to a point where you're able to read the Arabic language independently on your own, right? Um, so go through a couple of texts, two, three texts with a teacher in a methodical manner, right? You can start with, for example, قصص النبيين, قراءة الراشدة, for example. صور من حياة الصحابة is a very good book as well to go through. And these texts, not only will they help you get over that barrier, this mental barrier really, which you were feeling when it came to the Arabic language. They will also help you learn essential vocabulary, which is going to be beneficial for you in your future readings, right? And that's a key goal from these readings, that you are learning how to read, and you're also learning the essential vocabulary words that you will need later on to read other texts on your own, right? So that's number one. Once you've gone through a couple of books with a teacher, and there's one more thing that I want to emphasize here. There are some teachers that will make every book that they read with you a grammar exercise, right? And I personally don't agree with that method because that turns your reading into something very mechanical, right? Reading should be a natural process as much as possible, right? When you're reading English works, right, works in English, you're not trying to figure out, okay, this is the subject, this is the predicate, this, like, you understand that subconsciously. At a subconscious level, you understand that this is the subject, this is the predicate. That's how you're able to make sense of the whole sentence. But you don't do that with you're not consciously doing this whole mathematical equation thing in your mind, where it's, okay, this is the subject, this is the predicate, okay, this is the noun phrase, this is the verb phrase, and you're not doing that when you're reading in English. And you shouldn't have to do that every single time you read a text in the Arabic language. Not every single time, right? Yes, knowing that grammar is helpful to you with some complicated sentences where the mubtada is on one page and the khabar is later, but it's going to help you with that, no doubt about that. But to make that the standard way of reading every single text that you read, it's going to be very difficult for you to become a good reader like that. So my recommendation for teachers is that they teach one text. They go through, they go with the student through one text in that manner where they explain the grammar of it, right? And I personally choose Qisasun Nabiyyin to do that, right? Explain the grammar of Qisasun Nabiyyin, the sarf of it, so that the student understands how the structures of the Arabic language work. I think a student who understands that will eventually be a better reader than a student that doesn't, right? And they will also read more accurately. And that's why you find that graduates from India and Pakistan, as far as the accuracy of their reading, I'm not talking about the accuracy of understanding, I'm talking about the accuracy of their reading of texts, is pinpoint perfect, right? Because they know all the grammatical positions of the words, which where I'm supposed to read a fatha or a kasra or a dhamma. With Arabs, you'll find that they'll make mistakes at times, right? Because the students in India and Pakistan, they really focus on getting that ibara accurate, reading it accurately. Uh, so that's where knowing that grammar is beneficial in, and it also helps you in uncovering meanings too, no doubt about that. So if a teacher goes through with the student in that manner with one text, it should be sufficient inshallah ta'ala. And with other texts, he can make tanbihat wherever it's necessary and important, and wherever the sentence structure is maybe a bit more complex. But he shouldn't go through every single text like that, because that will lead the student to develop the habit of doing that with every single text. And then reading is going to become this very cumbersome process. Reading, uh, reading is going to become this very cumbersome process, um, that every single time you pick up a book, apart from trying to understand its context, you're trying to work out its grammar, and you don't want that to be your standard reading experience at all, right? At the same time, you should be aware of the grammatical positions of words to be able to understand text correctly, right? So striking the balance is the key, right? And I think if a teacher goes through one text with a student in that standard grammatical way, that's good enough for a student to perfect his reading of the line of the Arabic words and sentences. Um, and then after that, the natural way of reading with focus on content should be promoted. Now, so I'm actually thinking of announcing a course based on some of these ideas that I've discussed with you guys. So stay tuned inshallah ta'ala for that. بإذن الله الكريم. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.